Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica O'Brien, and welcome to the Women's Bar Association of Illinois' Cable Show. Today, we have two very special guests, Kimberly Anderson and Janice Boback. We are so grateful that they decided to come back to our show. There's so much to talk about in domestic relations, also known as family law, so we are glad that you can join us today. Welcome back, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure.
Domestic relations is a very interesting area of law. As much as we want everybody to stay married and happily married, the statistics is very high, and that's why this is a very interesting area of law. Am I correct? Of course, this is your concentration,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Very interesting.
So I'm going to bring it to a really basic level, okay? When somebody is thinking about getting divorced, what should they be thinking about, Kim? They should have a checklist, right? So I'm sure that the first thing that they should be thinking about is finding a good attorney to represent them. Am I correct?
We like them to find a good attorney, yes.
Okay.
It's a real personal choice, though, so I always recommend to them, if they're going to go shopping and look for other attorneys, that's a great idea. Make sure that that attorney does just that area of law, though. This is a very concentrated, in my opinion, specialized area, and you don't want somebody who's dabbling here and doing real estate closings and doing personal injury. You want somebody who just focuses in this area. So pick that type of a person, and then every personality is going to be different. I tend to be kind of in your face, for want of a better word. That appeals to some
Really?
people.
You sure?
That appeals to some people, and it turns others off. So you're going to have a very close relationship with your attorney. You're going to discuss strategy and how you're going to go about working with them. So you need to be comfortable with that person. So that's another criteria I would focus on as well.
Well, both of you have a very good reputation. I'm really proud of you.
Thank
Given
you.
that we're classmates from law school, and you're
Thank you.
doing really well, and you're very passionate about what you're doing.
Yes.
So anything else that they should be mindful about as far as picking their attorneys?
Well, I think Kimberly really laid it out well, is you've got to have a very good relationship with the attorney that you hire, and you've got to be able to work well together. And when people come in to visit us, we like to tell them how we work and how things run in our office initially when they come in, so they can get a feel of what it's going to look like. For example, we make sure they understand that we're going to get back to them, we're going to return their phone calls, and anytime we receive something or draft something or send something out, they get a copy, so their file at home looks like ours. People want to know what's going on in their case. People want to be informed. A lot of the clients that we have that come in and hire us just to replace their current attorney, their biggest complaint is that they're not aware of what's going on. So we at our firm strive very, very hard. Just the communication is open to make sure they know when to be in court, when they don't have to be in court, what happened in court if they weren't there, copies of the documents. And we're also open to communication as far as come in and let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on in your case, because our goal is to find out where do you want to end up, and let's make a plan to get there.
Well, unlike other areas of law, this one is very personal. It's about their lives, about their kids, about their properties. So really, I think it's almost like you have to have a really good relationship with your attorney when you're dealing with family law, because it's almost like your relationship with them. You're trusting them with everything that's bothering you and is why you're wanting a divorce, right?
You're right, and they do have to trust you, and you have to trust them to give you all the information that you need. It's going to affect the rest of their lives. The decisions in court, whether it be by a settlement or by a court order, will affect them for the rest of their lives.
So somebody makes a decision, they're getting divorced, and they hire both of you. Come to you, Kim. So what is the first thing that you do?
Well, basically, we listen to what they want to achieve, because some people want custody, not custody, parental allocation. They want specific things. So you really need to listen to see what it is they want. A lot of people are really interested in information, lots of information. So, I direct them. We have a blog we have written every day at Anderson and Boback.
What's your website again?
IllinoisLawForYou.com.
Okay.
And we direct them there. They can read daily a different article about, the different areas of law that's interesting to them or not interesting to them. Certain topics may not be, but a lot of people read the daily blog for information. They have my cell phone. They have my personal email. It's not uncommon for me to be on the phone, over the weekends, on holidays, to settle certain things that they have going on for them too. So
education is a very big component of the representation of the clients.
yeah, we like them to know exactly what they're going to get. I don't tell them, you're going to get this just to get them in the door and hire me. I indicate to them what a reasonable expectation is. And I think the judges appreciate that too, is managing the client's expectations. You're not going to, every dad is not going to walk away with 50% of the parenting time. It's just not going to happen. Some cases it is going to happen, in some cases it isn't. But I like to let them know what are their odds of getting what they want so that they don't have these unreasonable expectations. And I think that's really important.
I mean, really, this is an area of law where nobody's happy, right? Everybody's
Right.
disappointed about their current life, and that's why they're trying to change it by going to you and wanting to file for divorce.
Yeah.
So then they make the decision of filing for divorce. You file the complaint for them, and then do you encourage them to mediate this first with their spouse, or how does it all work?
We always encourage mediation. I think mediation is a very preferable way to go about it. Some people mediate even before they file. And it's where you meet with a neutral person to try to come to whatever kind of agreement you can. Because an agreement you can reach together is preferable and better for the whole family.
Okay. Well, when mediation doesn't work, then of course we proceed to the next level. So we're going to take a break and we'll talk about the next level.
Quiet, please. Wait a sec. I'll take one. Oh yeah. All right. All good. Take care. Way to go. Nice. Bring it on. Gotcha. I'm here for you. Oh no. Please, please, please. I'm waiting. Interesting. Not buying it. Not fair. That's it. This conversation is over. Oh, brother.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things.
I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke.
Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time. Time to call 911 immediately. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment, and that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Learn the body language, the sudden signs, and spot a stroke fast.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Women's Bar Association of Illinois' cable show. My name is Jessica O'Brien. I'm the president of the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. We are back in our show talking about family law with Kim Anderson and Janice Boback. When we left, we talked about when we stop where we said that if mediation doesn't work, then we proceed to the next step, which is basically litigation. Am I correct?
You're correct, Judge O'Brien, yes.
Well, before we go to that though, people always talk about who files first and whether or not that's important. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of times when I have people come into my office for a consultation, they always want to know, is it important that I file first or I need to file first for whatever reason? And our response is pretty much the same, that it doesn't matter who files first. Whether you're the petitioner or the respondent, it doesn't matter. The judges don't look at you differently. The court system in a whole or what you get in the end doesn't matter who files first. The only time that I notice a significance of whether you're the petitioner or the respondent is when you end up in a trial. When you're at trial and you're ready to present your evidence to the court, the petitioner goes first. And it's kind of a little bit of an advantage to be the respondent at that point because the petitioner goes first and you respond. But other than that, there's just no difference. People can file if they would like, but if they want to wait and see what happens and they get served with a petition that's been filed by their spouse, there's absolutely no issue with that.
Well, that's interesting though, because of course in civil court, like in my courtroom, the plaintiff goes first, and that's because, well, not because, but they have the burden of proof. That's not true in domestic relations.
It is not true. There is no burden of proof as far as because you're the petitioner or the respondent. So that is a little bit of difference. You're correct. But in our courtroom system, the petitioner still goes first with their evidence.
Well, that might be where it comes from though.
Probably, yeah. I think that's correct.
Kim, why don't we talk about litigation? How does litigation begin, and what are the challenges in litigation, and what can you tell us about that process?
I guess the main difference that I've noticed from like being in the prosecutor's office is, there's, when in the criminal courts there was just one event that you would, or like at a car accident, there's one event, the traffic accident. And in domestic relations, you may have years and years and years worth of events. Like if you're trying to determine who gets most of the parenting time with the child, you're trying to establish that you've done the most for the child. And so there's these evidence problems as far as the length of time and getting all the different, there's just so much to prove. Like if I want to say, well, I picked up the child most from school, how do I prove that? Most people don't walk around trying to have, documents to prove up a specific point every time I took them to the dentist, every time I, took them to the teacher-parent conference. So parents are then left scrambling trying to find all those documents and proofs and emails, and it gets a lot. There's a lot of documents.
And the litigation process, though, is the issue when it comes to the financial aspect of a divorce, is that the part that's really messy now? So given that it's a no-fault divorce now, right? So they don't even talk whose fault it is. So in that situation, does that mean that they're just dealing with dividing the assets?
Well, that's a big part of it, is dividing the assets, what we call the marital estate. That's always a big part, but you can't forget about the parental responsibilities. When you have children involved, that's oftentimes one of the very litigious parts, is who's going to have that parental responsibilities. So really that's the components, the division of the property, the parental responsibilities, and let's not forget about the maintenance and support. Right. That's a critical financial component.
Why don't you tell us about that? Maintenance. I mean, maybe let's define what maintenance is.
Maintenance used to be called alimony. It's the support from one spouse to the other. And there's some factors that are involved. And the courts look at the factors such as how long have you been married, the health of the parties, the ability to earn income, what has there been the standard of living, what have they done during the marriage. And they like to keep the status quo. They like to keep everybody in the same standard of living that they've become accustomed to. Kind of a fallacy because it's difficult when you have two households now instead of one. But they've come up with a maintenance, it's a guidelines now, just like we have guidelines child support. Now maintenance is under a guidelines. You have to fit into the maintenance category with specific parameters of your income, and then it's just a calculation. This is how much maintenance you're going to get based on these numbers. So it's been a double-edged sword. It's really been difficult for a payor because it can be harsh, and it seems to me that the judges in our court system are making a determination whether or not it's a maintenance case, and they're following those guidelines pretty clearly.
Curious though, Kim, if somebody gives up their career in order to raise their kids, and when we're talking about maintenance, has that changed as far as the law is concerned? So if I gave up my career, raised my kids for 20 years, and now I don't even have a college education, I'm getting divorced, and the way you're talking about the formula, how does that change?
Yeah, well, I think the courts still have to make a determination if you're getting maintenance or not. So that's still, and obviously it's still a guideline. So there's certain things that are going to change that guideline. Like I have a case now where they've only been married for 5 years. So once we punch the numbers into the computer and we get the formula and we say, okay, he's going to pay her this much money for so many years, we now argue, Judge, you shouldn't follow the guidelines for the length of the time because she's got a mental illness, and that's not going away, So
she had
we're
mental
asking.
Illness after the 5 years of being with the husband, right?
So we're
That's
asking.
a great argument.
So we're asking her or the judge to follow certain guidelines, like how much, but maybe not necessarily the length. So we will get some feedback from the judges too that will say, well, I'm going to follow it for this purpose, but not that. I'm going to follow the amount, but not for the length. So it's still a guideline. The judges still have discretion. We can still make arguments, just like child support, that say support or maintenance should go on, or it should be shortened.
Okay, I think that's a very interesting point, and we will pick up from there in the last segment.
Hey everybody! Heart disease affects 1 in every 3 women in America, but you can fight back. There's no time to lose. Mothers, sisters, daughters, families, and friends, it's time to shout louder, stand stronger, and demand change. Let's go!
To the Batmobile. Dang it.
To the invisible jet!
Dang it.
Together, we can put an end to heart disease. It's time to go red for women.
I could use your help.
Learn more from the American Heart Association at www.goredforwomen.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Women's Bar Association of Illinois' cable show. This is the last segment of our show today, and we are here with our distinguished guest, Janice Boback and Kimberly Anderson with Anderson and Boback. The last time we were here, we discussed maintenance. And Kim, why don't you finish with your last thought at the last segment?
Yeah. You were asking, did it have any effect, the fact that you had stayed home and raised your children? And yes, definitely it does. It's something that the court's going to look at. It's one of the criteria in the statute. If you've given up something for the other, if you've sat home and raised the kids, of course that's going to have a difference in your case as far as receiving maintenance.
This probably has nothing to do with maintenance, but I'm wondering if it does affect it in situations where the other spouse spent all of the money on somebody else. There's a term for that, dissipation, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. We see a lot of dissipation. Some of it's, more money than other cases, but basically dissipation is spending the marital money on something that's not, for the marriage. We've seen it where the judges have called it dissipation for drinking and driving. If they've gotten caught drinking and driving, the cost of the lawyer, all of that litigation has been dissipation in the past. Paying for another child support has been called dissipation. When you're buying flowers and lingerie or houses for somebody that's not your wife, that can all be called dissipation.
What if the other spouse is just a shopaholic?
Well, that's the hard part.
Is that categorized as a dissipation too?
Well, no, because if it's something that you've always done, like if you own 200 pairs of shoes and you just keep buying shoes, the men hate it, of course, but if that's been what you've always done during the marriage, then it's not going to be dissipation. It's for a purpose not related to the marriage. Men, of course, would argue that buying, your 900th pair of shoes is dissipation, but the women will complain just as much about him going out and drinking beer at the bar. So
very interesting. Well, we talked about your state law practice, but have you been in federal court? I know you both have been admitted to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if I recall, I think you had a case in the U.S. Supreme Court. Am I correct?
Well, we have a case that was pending in the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., and that was based on a writ that was filed, although the Supreme Court didn't take the case, so that case did not move forward. But we did argue at the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington, D.C., so we were very, very fortunate to have that opportunity. But it was a military case, a case
Tell
that...
us more about that. You argued it personally, am I right?
I did.
Okay.
I argued that personally. It came into our office because a military member had passed away, and he had been married twice. He had been married to his first wife for about 40 years, and he was married to the second wife for about 18 years. And the second wife received his military retirement pay. She received the death
100%.
benefit. She received all of the death benefit. And it had to do with some forms that needed to be filled out, with some regulations that needed to be complied with some rules that had to be followed once you get remarried. She was successful, and she maintained the pension, and that was appealed to the United States Court of Appeals in the Federal Circuit. So we argued it, and it was affirmed, and so the decision maintained. So it was a good outcome. But it was a very interesting case, and because of our work in the military, we had the opportunity to argue that in federal court.
Was that appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court?
It was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Opposing counsel did file a writ of certiorari, and it was declined. The United States Supreme Court did not want to hear it, so unfortunately we didn't get that bite at the apple.
So really, but that's a win, though. That
It's
means
a
that
win.
your decision in the
Stands.
lower court stands. Okay.
Correct.
Well, that's great.
Correct, yes. Correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a great experience.
Well, the last thing that I want to talk to you about, being that this is the Women's Bar Association of Illinois, and of course we always do a lot of pro bono work and help out women's groups, and I know both of you are very active in giving back to the community. Why don't you share with our audience exactly the different things that you've been doing, the different initiatives, Kim?
Yeah, we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've worked at abuse shelters, giving lectures on child support and how to do orders of protection. I've cooked, because I used to be a cook in my past. I've gone and taught some cooking classes, how to cook on a budget. I've done that. Currently, though, I'm more inclined with the dogs and the cats. We do a spay and neuter clinic. Anderson and Boback sponsors a spay and neuter clinic every year, a couple of them actually, down in Mexico, where I have a house. So we go down there every year. We go down and we participate in that spay and neuter clinic, and so it's great for the community. It's great for us. We have a great time doing it. Gets us to go to Mexico during the winter. So somebody has to sacrifice and do that. So we're there to do it.
Well, you're very supportive of the Women's Bar Association of Illinois as well, and we thank you for your support over the years. And
Very supportive of the
you're a
Women's Bar
co-chair.
and of your presidency. You've done a great
Thank
job
you.
this
Thank
year.
you very much.
You've made some great strides, and it's been a pleasure to be part of all your initiatives and all that we've got to participate in. So, yeah, and you can read about our clinics that we participate in on our website, IllinoisLawForYou.com, as well as the Race Judicata, which we usually participate in as a team. Our firm all gets together, and we plan on doing that again this year. And I do remember very fondly the orders of protection clinics that we've given at some of these abuse shelters. I think it's information that needs to get out there.
But you continue to speak at different events as well. I mean, the Women's Bar event that we had on October 1st, which was the sold out 600 people event at the Thompson Center, was successful.
Yes,
and
great
you
opportunity.
were one of the speakers. That was really incredible.
And then Kim, too, remember, was one of the founders of the Women Everywhere.
That's right. And the Women Everywhere is, of course, very active and that's still going strong and helping
and has
communities.
grown.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm very honored to have you both as my guest. Like I said, you both have very stellar reputations, and we're really proud that you have done so well in your practice. And also, thank you for sharing your time with us.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge.
Well, thank you, everyone. And again, my name is Jessica O'Brien. I'm the president of the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. My co-host today is unfortunately unable to make it, but her name is Judge Patrice Ball-Reed, and she will be joining us at our next show. Thank you.